hello, good afternoon.
Good morning, Mara.
Oh, well, on your side of the way.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
For Doc and I, it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it's the long hand is moving up on the one. It's
I know,
40
because
seconds away.
I keep thinking you're on the West Coast.
In certain ways, I am. my heart and my mind are there in many ways. And we're technically residents of Santa Barbara. I haven't seen our house there in a year, since a year ago, January, which I know because people have been renting it out is in need of work, and I'm dreading going back, and I'm eager to go back, and
So you're in Maryland, right?
No, I'm in Indiana.
Oh, you were just visiting Maryland.
I was visiting Maryland,
I
yeah.
see.
Well, it's Friday, May 16th. This is the weekly public meeting for Kwaai. Kwaai is the nonprofit AI lab, and today's guest speaker is Doc Searls. But before we get on with Doc's presentation, Myra, tell us, what do we expect?
Today we have, obviously, just as you mentioned, Doc Searls, Kwai's Chief Intention Officer, and yes, that is real. So Rosa, I think we want to start with some updates from you. I know we have a lot to celebrate on the KwaiNet front, and then we'll move on to Doc and his topic for today. And then after that, we'll go through some work groups and follow up with new member voices.
You're going to be hearing from Doc in a little while.
The scariest
on the
picture ever
Kwaai.
taken of me, right there.
No, I think it's a really cool picture.
So does the guy who took it. He's great.
On the Kwaai homepage, which for me is running really slow, because we woke up this morning, the network is not helping, and so you can go and look at what the let's go to map.kwaai.ai. You can go there yourself. This is what we should be celebrating, that we've got 19 nodes up on the network. The majority of them are outside the US. We've got our colleagues in Italy, on the island of Malta, would you believe it, over here. Terence has got a number of nodes up and running. Yes, on the island of Malta, there are 7 machines up and running, and that's courtesy of Terence, who's one of our members. If we zoom out, we can see there are 3 running in Milan. Well, the network is continuously rebalancing itself. So there's 10, there's 9 over here. If we go in, we can see 4 in Los Angeles. Hey, that's my machine. That's the very machine we're talking over. Okay. And I don't think that's why the bandwidth is my network connection's low. This is in fact, this is the problem of monopolies. When one company has the monopoly of a service, there's no incentive for them to improve their performance. And so this is what's happened in the cable industry. They've agreed to not compete with each other, and they basically cede territory to allow regional monopolies in each area. So this is a fact of reality, and we don't want we want to be a force that resists monopolization. So here's a cluster of nodes up in San Jose as well. Great. What does this mean? Well, KwaiNet is the fledgling distributed fabric for running AI on a peer-to-peer network that is not owned by big corporations. It is us volunteering our computers to work in tandem to bring AI down from the clouds to run it at the edge, smarter, faster, and greener. We've rebooted the network. Last week it was a bit unstable. We've rebooted it, and we've got some very stable anchor nodes now. We've moved the bootstrap and the API nodes. These are the kind of single points of failure that we're trying to eradicate. Eventually, we'll end up distributing that. I got a message from Balaji. I think in the work group updates, I'll give that report later on.
It isn't urgent. I just had one quick question. Being decentralized as QuaiNet, what happens if Kwaai itself folds?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same question as what happens if the Linux Foundation folds? What happens to Linux? This is important. In the case of a for-profit entity, all the intellectual property will basically get liquidated and sold off. In the case of an open source movement, the code survives. It's in GitHub repositories that are open source, that have open source licenses attached to them. So anyone can go and pick up the work product of what has been the investment of tired hours and time between jobs of volunteers. And if that investment is not lost. So great question. And Linux is a great example of a movement that has yielded a foundation of software upon which $1 trillion economy has been built. Okay, Myra, over to you.
Yep. So, Doc, if you're ready.
Doc, you're up.
Oh, shit. Wait a minute. Okay. Sure. Today at Project VRM, which is a project I started at Harvard's Berkman Klein Center way back in 2006, dedicated to the challenge of proving that free customers are more valuable than captive ones, and we'll have much bigger and better markets in the digital age if all of us are operating at full agency. And that grew out of the Clue Train Manifesto and trying to prove what they said. And I was one of the 4 authors of that came out in 2000. So 18 years later, my 1-year project is still going. But we have some big things afoot right now that are really, really, really worth talking about. So I published this today. How do we get to the intention economy? The intention economy is the title of a book that I wrote. It came out in 2012. And this thing here, it says the customer as a god. That was the front page of the Wall Street Journal's marketplace section in July 23rd of 2012, not long after the book came out. A guy named Robert Thompson, who was then the managing editor of the Wall Street Journal, looked at the book, which Harvard Business Review Press kindly sent a pile of to the Wall Street Journal, fell in like with it and said, I want the opening chapter of that as the cover story for our marketplace section in an upcoming issue. And Harvard Business Review Press didn't like that. They just wanted me to write something completely original, which I did. They titled it The Customer as a God. I didn't. That would actually be a good title for the follow-up to the intention economy. But it actually starts out with this one-liner. It's a Saturday morning in 2022. They wanted me to anticipate what would happen 12 years out. Those 12 years are done 3 years ago, and we're not there. So how do we get there? What is it that has kept the intention economy, or for that matter, not happening since 2012? Project, VRM, which is the customer side counterpart of CRM and CX, not operating at full capacity since we started that project in 2006, and having, frankly, the Clue Train Manifesto being ahead of its time now for 25 years. So I note in here that not only was Riza inspired, and other people here possibly also, by the intention economy for Kwaai, but Sir Tim Berners-Lee told me in 2023 at a camp that we were all at, that the book inspired his Solid project and INRUP, which is its commercial counterpart. There was a startup in the UK by a guy named Davy Salas who worked for Visa Europe. Visa Europe is now merged with Visa itself. He was so jazzed about it, he started a startup called Credo. We consulted him until he died suddenly and unexpectedly and sadly at age 55 in 2015, and that went away. But the draft I created for the website survives at my server, and you can take a look at it at the link there. I mentioned Riza there, and here's the key thing that I think personal AI is what it's going to take. And this is a graphic I made up a few months ago, and Reese has used it a lot of times since. Now, what part of this happens first, and how does it happen? Now, here is what's really important right now, and I think we should talk about. First, here listed in here is here's all the stuff that's not done that the data we need in all these places, our schedules, our financial records, our property, our healthcare, our past and future work, our travels, subscriptions, all that. We don't have that data for the most part. Worse, data about us is being reported onto parties unknown by our cars, our TVs, all kinds of things, our apps, our phones, maybe not by Apple itself. They have a little disclaimer on that, but they are not guiltless in this matter either. My point matters, which is that something has happened, and that something is a big thing. And that big thing is that Visa, VISA, the thing in your wallet, has worked with Inrupt to come up with a personal AI solution that's based on Inrupt and Solid. And that is going to be what they bring into the marketplace. Right? And this isn't just like the innovation quarter of I'll go back up to here because it's just easier to look at, by Bruce Schneier, who, in addition to being a Harvard professor and an old friend through the Berkman Center there, is the chief in something security officer guy for Inrupt. But here's the thing, in there you'll find links to a long talk, an hour and 22 minutes by Ryan McInerney, who's the CEO of Visa, and starting about 26 minutes in, an explanation of how intent is going to work. They want to respect the intent of the customer, and they want to respect the intent of their customers, who are not only you and me, and we're not necessarily paying Visa directly, but we are with our purchases. But they're corporate customers that are the ones accepting Visa and all that. And it's basically intent casting. It's on your side, you will have your what used to be a solid pod. It's now called your wallet. It's your solid wallet. It will have information from Visa about your purchases. Now, how that will look, I don't know. An interesting fact to me is that Visa statements that you see online with your bank, if it's Chase or any of those, are all in uppercase and intentionally somewhat obscure. You'll see 5 Amazon items, but they don't say what you bought with those Amazon items.
That is one of my pet peeves.
It's a huge peeve. And I think ideally, they will let us know more about, they'll essentially give us more data than we had before, in order for them to help you do better intent casting. They don't call it intent casting, but they do talk about intent. And their assumption, because they are, live in the transactional world of payments, is that you're shopping all the time. And one of my contentions is, actually, we're not shopping. None of us here, I hope, are shopping right now. Some of us may want to, but we are not just commercial entities. We own a lot of stuff. We have lots of records. We have lots of issues in our lives that are not just financial, but have to do with our health and our travels and everything else. And that's the kind of personal data we also need to have full control of with truly personal AI. Now, they talk about AI. They assume you have an AI agent on your side. That could be ours, should be ours. And a question for us is, how do we want to approach this? These are friends. I mean, I don't know Ryan McInerney at all, but I do know John Bruce, who runs Inrupt, who told us all about this a couple of days ago. Had a nice long talk with him. Joyce and I did. I've known Bruce for many years. I know Tim Berners-Lee a bit, but there are angles we can take here. What are we going to do? I mean, I think in a way, if I'm thinking out loud here. Okay, so you can have as many wallets, as they now call them, as you want. You can have one big one, I suppose. But the part of it that Visa will access in order to help you, and I guess they're thinking it's their AI agent on your side working for you, um, based on your purchase history, which they know about, um, but they've told you about, and you on your side have a way to look at and decide, I want a vacation at this place. He gives the example of maybe you like to fish, but you don't want to be at the beach. What kind of hotel would you want? And the supposition there, by the way, is that knowing your complete purchase history, which Visa will not, they won't know what you bought with cash or with other cards, um, or with, something more direct. Um, but the supposition there is there's enough intel in that to give you the advice you need in order to make the purchase that's best for you. I actually contend that this is not true, or it's not true in most cases. We just bought 4 different mattresses for the house next to us here that we also own. That between that house and one room in this house, we needed to replace all our air mattresses with real ones. And we did not buy a single one. We went to Facebook Marketplace and bought all of them on Facebook Marketplace. Is Visa going to help you with Facebook Marketplace? I have my car repaired by one of the 2 places that repairs a Volkswagen of that age. And I know that guy by reputation, and he's the cheapest. So that's the guy I use. And I did that by talking to other people, not by, having some AI figure something out from my purchase history. I think our crumb trails in the world are much less a useful indicator of what we might want, or even the kind of information we need for making a decision about anything. In many cases, and this is a problem with Amazon, it's always recommending, hey, every day I get a note from Amazon saying, hey, you left this one open. Do you want these batteries again? Well, of course not. I bought too many batteries in the first place. I'm not going to buy them ever again. They're rechargeables. So it's a waste of your time. I mean, for Amazon, I got for years promotions of Thomas the Tank Engine because my grandson loved that. Okay.
And they probably watched it on your Amazon Prime account or something.
Something like that. It's
Yeah.
before Prime, because that guy is now going to be 18 and going to college. Okay. Studying mechanical engineering. He does not even remember Thomas the Tank Engine at this point. He's had too much going on since then. He's got a
Yeah.
great French girlfriend. He's got a life. He's not there anymore. I'm not there anymore either. It's, this stuff is like interesting trivia, but not necessarily useful that way. What would, I contend that personal AI is actually best for us just for personal empowerment. And that to me is the big issue. And it's it's the hard part of doing personal AI. It's how do we get self-knowledge and self-independence, and do not look at ourselves as a buying machine, as a buying robot, but as a human being who needs more control over their lives in the everyday world and their relationships and the things that matter to them, than what they can get with just the heap of data they've got now. I've said before that probably the best speech on all this, and it's probably in my my post here, which is in pieces, but was a talk by a comedy bit by George Carlin called "A Place for My Stuff," where it's brilliant, and it basically, it's so relevant now. You need a place for your stuff. Your house is just a pile of stuff in a box with a roof on it, and you go to other people's houses, and what you notice is they've got all their stuff in here. It's not my stuff. I don't like their stuff, right? I like my stuff, right? You go to the hotel, and the first thing you do is put your stuff in all these other places that are for your stuff, and we carry more, and we have more room for stuff, so we buy stuff while we're there. We carry it back, and his best line in all of that is, have you ever noticed that everybody else's stuff is shit and all of your shit is stuff, right?